I have this rebellious cousin that just returned from abroad, and she thinks she's going to get away with attempting to ruin my life forever. And you know what? I'm going to get her.
Sometimes your enemies can be close. This story is about the betrayal and disappointment I've experienced. My cousin and I have grown up like sisters since our childhood. That's why I've loved her so much and trusted her. Yes, my so-called sister Victoria, she's 21, tried to steal everything that belonged to me and push me aside. She's my cousin. Let's go to the beginning so you can understand the story better. Victoria's parents died when we were very young, so my family took her in, and as the only child, I was very happy that Victoria was now my sister. Well, as time went on, Victoria started to disobey the rules set by my family, constantly causing harm to others in our surroundings and at school. Sometimes she would ask me to take the blame for her actions, making me feel like I had to do whatever she said. My family always blamed me for Victoria's wrongdoings, and in their eyes, Victoria always remained innocent. Back then, I did not understand why this was happening because Victoria was constantly applying emotional manipulation, making me feel like she had no family and was alone. Whenever I liked someone, she would steal them away from me and then expect me to be understanding. As I started to excel in school, gaining all the attention, Victoria became even more rebellious. She had damaged a family heirloom painting my father valued greatly and shifted all the blame onto me. My father never forgave me, and our relationship soured significantly. In his eyes, I remained a troubled and unsuccessful child. I was angry with Victoria for this situation at hand, and we had a fight that ended with Victoria leaving home, either to punish me or to gain more of my family's attention, I don't know. In the face of this situation, my family looked at me as if I were unkind and unforgiving. Aren't they my family? How could they take sides against me? Okay, I feel so sorry for Victoria, but why should I constantly bear the burden of her actions? It's unfair. I hope you understand me. In Victoria's absence, I focused on my studies. I became the top student in school and an honor student. My family had started to warm up to me again, and the pressure of me increased significantly. I believed that if my grades dropped, my family would stop loving me again. I felt guilty for Victoria because her life wasn't easy either, and she had run away all by herself, and anything could have happened to her. A year later, scholarship offers and university acceptances began to arrive at our doorstep. My father, after these achievements of mine, made a speech expressing his regret about what happened to the family heirloom, but mentioned that it's in the past, so there's no problem between us. Everything was going well. My family even allowed me to get my driver's license and bought me a car. Just 2 days after getting my car, the police found a dead body, and it could have been Victoria. We were very frightened and uneasy, and when we checked the body and realized it was not Victoria, my parents were both happy and my mother cried a lot. I was more afraid of my family changing back to how they used to be than I was of Victoria. I know it's selfish, but I did not want to become a nobody again and an unloved child. After this incident, my family and I did not talk much for a while, but gradually we were returning to our old ways. In the summer, when I got into university and right on my 19th birthday, Victoria came back home. All our relatives were there for my birthday, and as soon as we saw Victoria, we all hugged her. I was very happy to see her. Victoria and I started sharing a room again, and every evening at dinner, we listened to Victoria's stories. She had tattoos on her body and had started smoking, but nobody said anything to her. My family redirected all their attention to Victoria, and I began to feel like an extra in this family again. I thought that maybe Victoria wasn't doing this on purpose. After all, she might have gone through a lot of difficulties. I felt guilty for being jealous of her. Victoria was getting used to living with us again and had started finishing her incomplete education. She was returning to her rebellious ways, however, going out at night, attending to parties, and sometimes coming home drunk, trying to hide it from the family. I would try to conceal it when Victoria was drunk, and I thought that she was not doing it on purpose. My family expected me to help her adapt because I had to delay my university trip due to her return. One night, without my knowledge, Victoria went out, and when she woke me up in the middle of the night, I saw her sitting on her bed looking disheveled and worried. I didn't understand what had happened, but I thought that she had gone out to have fun again, so I went back to sleep. When I woke up in the morning and could not see my car in front of the house, I was really worried. A few hours later, the police came to our home. While I was trying to understand what was happening, the police told me that there had been an accident with my car the previous night, and one person had been injured. My family looked at me as if I were guilty, while Victoria watched with a smile. The police arrested me and took me to the police station. I was very scared, thinking about what would happen to my future and fearing I might lose everything and that my family might never want me again. When I was interrogated at the police station, I explained that I had not driven the car that night and had been asleep. When the police asked if I had any witnesses, I mentioned that my family and Victoria could be a witness. I was going to be held in custody for a while. The next day, Victoria's statement revealed that I sometimes snuck out at night and used substances like alcohol. She wanted to take everything away from me. When they called me in for another statement, I explained what Victoria had done and how she had come home early in the morning and the day as well. The man was injured in the hospital, had also woken up and given a statement. The police showed him photos of me and Victoria and asked how to identify the culprit. When the man pointed to Victoria and told them everything, my innocence was finally proven. My family was shocked and upset by Victoria's actions. Victoria began to stay at the police station because she had committed some other minor crimes. One day, somebody from the police called my father's phone, and I secretly answered it before my father even noticed. The police informed me that Victoria had been staying in the country illegally, and her visa expired long ago. I told my family about this, and then called the immigration office to report Victoria. My family also told me that the police had informed them that Victoria would be deported a week later. Victoria's case was resolved, and my family settled the matter by compensating the accident victim. The decision was made for Victoria to be deported from the country, and it would take some time for her to obtain a visa again. My family apologized to me for not seeing Victoria's true nature sooner. Now I need to work on my university life again. Top comments from the original post. Comment number 1. Honestly, it's incredibly selfish for Victoria to manipulate the tragedy that she went through to use you and your family. Even feeling guilty is wrong. That girl ruined your life. It's heartbreaking that your family doesn't even understand you. I'm on your side. I hope your cousin never comes back. Comment number 2. You're the one being thoughtless here. Victoria may have gone through a lot and she's an orphan. It's quite normal for her to do some bad things to seek love. You say you feel guilty and sorry, but when you got the news about the body, you were more worried about your family not loving you. You shouldn't blame Victoria for being so selfish. You even made sure she got deported from the country, even though her relatives were the only place where she could receive love. Update number 1. In my previous message, I looked at the situation from Victoria's perspective. And talked about my feelings towards her. Some of the negative comments I read mentioned the unfortunate things in Victoria's life and her orphan status, but what about my pain? I believe that those comments were written thoughtlessly and without a logical foundation. After all, I thought my family did not love me. Even during the most important moments, the focus was always on Victoria and her problems. I'm sure that her return on my birthday was not a coincidence. Do you realize how much that hurt me? I initially saw her as my sister. The day that we got the news about the body, I was more afraid of it being Victoria, because no matter how much she hurt me, somewhere deep down I still saw her as my sister. It's normal for me to think your family doesn't love me because of their perspective on Victoria. You have no idea how sad and exhausting it is for a person to believe that their family doesn't love them. When she took my car that night, who knows what kind of trouble she could have gotten in. Indeed, she did. She almost got me sent to prison, and I don't understand how you can still defend Victoria. Anyways, before calling the immigration office, I talked to my other aunt because she understood my mother's situation the best. I explained to her what Victoria had done, and my aunt told me word for word, "I understand your mother very well, but Victoria is causing harm to your family, especially you. Your mother should be thinking more about you. You might need to leave it to your family's conscience. They may not understand you. It may be necessary to call immigration, but ultimately it's up to you, hon." After our conversation, I thought for a while and tried to anticipate what harm Victoria might cause me next time. I was scared because my dream of going to university and my career could be ruined. So, I called the immigration office, and she has not been permanently deported, and there's a specific time frame and condition for her return as long as she meets them. A few months passed, and Victoria started sending us letters about her life, expressing her remorse for what she has done, losing her family and having everyone pity her and see my family love for me made her very unhappy, which fueled her jealousy. She didn't know what to do or how to live properly, so she always chose the wrong path. Reading her letters made me feel even more sorry for her. Perhaps instead of feeling sorry for her, I should have been there for her, asking her questions. Maybe we could have had a better life. Update number 2. As I read Victoria's letters, I find myself agreeing with some of the negative comments. Perhaps I should have been more understanding. Maybe I focused too much on myself and was afraid of losing everything. In her letters, she mentioned that she could visit us, and I don't know if Victoria has changed, but I hope she has because I don't want to go through the pain of her hurting me again or seeing my family turn against me again. Her arrival coincided with the school break, and when I came home, Victoria had already arrived. She hugged me as soon as she saw me and told me how much she missed me, saying that she hoped it wasn't too late for everything, and I wanted to believe her. But it's not something that can really happen right away. Since my family was looking at me hopefully, I gave a positive response to Victoria. My mother had prepared a room for Victoria with great care, and it felt like every time she saw Victoria, she was sidelining me. In a few days, the relatives came and we gathered for family dinners and engaged in conversation. Everybody seemed to deliberately bring up the immigration case at the dinner table, showing how sorry they were. "My dear niece, who I saw as a sister, if I had not been reported to the immigration office and sent far away, I might never have realized my mistakes. Love, Victoria." "Wait, the police didn't send you away?" "No, but didn't you all know? I thought it was your decision." With these words, she directed all the blame towards me. My mother angrily got up from the table, and my father followed. Well, Victoria shed a few tears saying she was sorry and went to her room. Everybody started to get mad at me no matter what. What I did was too much. Families are supposed to protect each other. While Victoria continued to ruin my life, nobody was protecting my back. My aunt tried to calm the relatives and talk to them. Then she sent me back to my room. I could hear my family's arguments from my room, and my mother was scolding my aunt for giving me such an idea, and I was tired of their constant fights because of me, and it was at the same story again. Victoria, stealing my happiness. I left my room and went down to my family and aunt. I yelled, telling them that Victoria had been doing the same thing since my childhood, constantly causing harm to my belongings and stealing my happiness. When my father attempted to slap me, I reminded them that they had forgotten how Victoria had tried to send me to jail and take my car. I left the house with my vehicle. Was I wrong? I was tired of constantly being on Victoria's side, being treated as less important, and especially of always having to clean up after her. Don't I have the right to this as well? I don't want to be a good kid, obey the rules, listen to my family anymore. If they can be silent about Victoria, even when she's being a rebel, then they must be silent about me too. Am I wrong? Update number 3. Since I left home, I've been staying in a hostel, and I don't have many belongings with me. My parents kept calling and messaging me all the time, and I had no idea what to do. When I left, I had not made any plans. I was just too angry and could not control myself. I didn't want to be there. My aunt called me and we talked for a while, and she asked where I was and what I was doing, and I guess she felt guilty because of what happened. I told her not to blame herself and that all the blame was on Victoria. It wasn't my aunt who constantly hurt me, after all. I spent the day thinking about this and then went back home to gather my stuff. The relatives weren't at home and only my aunt was there, and she was very concerned about me. My parents started to yell at me, but I didn't listen to them. I went to my room. I knew playing the bad guy was not my usual character, but I could not find any other way out. When we gathered for breakfast, Victoria looked at me and said that she was sorry. I really wanted to hit her. Her innocent face was driving me nuts. I didn't say anything. It was as if my mouth was sealed shut with glue. My mother looked at me and tried to get me to talk, saying, "Say something!" But I turned to my aunt and talked about how some people can be shameless. Victoria felt embarrassed and my parents got angry, and I told them to look at themselves and explain why they suddenly got angry. They didn't understand how hurt I was until I pointed out every one of their mistakes. I left the table and went straight to my room, not coming out for a while. My mother was telling my aunt how sad she was, and I also was very sad. Victoria initially called out to me from her room, and I think it was to see if I heard her. She started talking on the phone, and I realized that her debt was the reason for her return. I understood that she had come here because she needed to settle her debt with the family's money. "Victoria, you're like an incurable disease, and we will get rid of you." When night fell, Victoria ran away from home again, and she had not attempted this since she arrived. I silently followed her. She passed areas with bars and clubs and gradually entered more dangerous streets. She stopped on a street and began to wait. I was quietly recording everything with my phone, and right there a man arrived. They started to argue. The man wanted payment, but Victoria said she cannot do it right now. The man gave her 1 more week and began to threaten her. After I recorded enough, I returned home ahead of Victoria in a taxi and went to my room secretly. I started thinking about what to do with the recordings that I had. Well, anyways, update number 4. That night, I could not sleep at all. I kept thinking about what I should do. When I went down for breakfast the next morning, I was tired and confused, and after breakfast, Victoria wanted to have a private conversation with my family, so my aunt and I went for a walk. I was sure she was going to make up some excuse to ask for money. While chatting with my aunt, I told her about the strange phone call and Victoria sneaking out at home last night, and how I followed her and recorded it. My aunt became alarmed and told me I needed to tell my family about this because it could bring trouble to us. We quickly finished our walk and returned home. When we got back, my family looked at me and my aunt and said that our conversation wasn't finished. Right at that moment, I asked Victoria, "What do you want from us?" My mom looked at me as if to question what I meant, so I repeated my question. Victoria immediately went into self-defense mode and started emotionally manipulating, saying things like, I have no what? I don't know what to do." My aunt, getting frustrated, silenced her. My mom was surprised by my aunt's behavior and told her not to interfere. However, I could not stay silent any longer. I mirrored my phone to the television screen, and I played that video. Victoria watched the screen with fear, and my mom and dad were furious this time. Victoria can't escape again. I don't want her back. I'm tired of her selfishness and bad behavior. I turned to my family and said last night, after a strange phone call, Victoria snuck out of the house at midnight. I followed her. Although my dad was initially angry with me, he agreed with me as he watched the video. Then as I explained how Victoria seemed to know the dangerous streets by heart and detailed what had happened with that man, Victoria starts to cry, as if her tears could save her. Even my aunt looked at Victoria and commented on her crocodile tears and left the room. My mom and dad told me, to go out of the room and wanted me to talk alone with Victoria. After Victoria left the room and collected her things, she left the house. My family wanted to talk to me now. My parents were so remorseful and embarrassed, and they told me that they were so sorry and that they had paid Victoria all this attention. However, they also informed me that she would not be coming back to our house again. They said that this would be the last help to Victoria, and from now on they would focus on me. But I could not forgive my family for a while because I had a fight against Victoria on my own, and they never supported me. Update number 5. After the events, months have passed, and Victoria sent me a letter. My family did not know about this letter. In the letter, she claimed that when she last came to our house, her intention was not to attack me. Believing that my family knew the truth, she said she genuinely saw me as a sister, but her jealousy and greed had caused her to ruin everything. She explained how she accrued the debt, and when she was deported, she took on the debt because she had no financial means to support herself and was left all alone. Later, she met a man, fell in love, and started living with him. However, when the man cheated on her and kicked her out, she had no place to go. So she came to our home. She also did not realize she was pregnant at the time, and after paying off the debt with the money my family gave her, she left the country again and built a life for herself, and she decided to take care of her kid. She ended the letter by sincerely apologizing for everything. I don't know if the contents of the letter are true or not, but I have not forgiven her for anything. I simply wish her well with her child out of goodwill. My family frequently tries to reach out to me to spend time together during holidays, but I often spend most of my free time working or with my aunt because I can't seem to get over this intense disappointment I feel towards my family. More time is needed for me to forgive them, and I have not responded to Victoria because I don't want her to hear that I've forgiven her or feel good on my behalf. I'm not sure if I'm still acting selfishly. When I shared my story with you, I didn't realize how hurtful these events have been. Do you have any thoughts for me? Top comments from the final update. Comment number 1. Well, from your perspective, you've indeed had to struggle on your own, and I'm grateful that your aunt supported you. Honestly, no matter how innocently Victoria may have sent you a letter, it doesn't change the fact that her actions have sincerely hurt you. Furthermore, your family's expectations that you continue to endure this emotional pain while they still expect your attention is quite selfish. Comment 2. I agree that while Victoria has made mistakes in the past, in the end, she seemed to want to establish a sincere connection with you, LP. Your lingering anger may have disrupted her dream of starting a happy family. You may want to reconsider or even consider if there's a difference between you and Victoria now. You're able to continue your life in a positive way with loved ones around you while Victoria has nobody, and being a young mother must be particularly challenging for her. You come across as quite selfish, unforgiving even.
So the general idea in the comment section was that Victoria was an absolute nightmare. But what about that last comment that I just read to you guys, where the commenter was basically saying how OP is in the wrong, and Victoria is now left with nothing? I want to know your thought on that, your perspective, because in my opinion, that's a pretty wild take. But anyways, let's talk about it downstairs in the comment section. If you guys are new to the channel, I want to welcome you. I hope you enjoyed today's video. My name's Mr. Reddito, and I narrate similar stories. It could be inheritance dramas, wedding fiascos, mother-in-law disputes. We cover it all. I want you to hit that subscribe button for daily videos if it interests you. But thank you once again. I'll see you guys tomorrow. But do one thing for me. Just remember, it's cool to be kind. Peace.